Our first piece we're going to cover for early Christian art are in the Catacombs of Priscilla. They date from 200 to 400 CE, and the materials are made out of tufa and fresco, and this is from Rome, Italy. The catacombs are where affluent families, they would often create small rooms off of the main passageway of the house in order to house their sarcophagi. And these small rooms were known as cubiculums. Cubiculums, it's spelled Cubiculum, is the room itself. And the catacomb are a network of cubiculums. Catacombs were a secret place for underground burials of Christians. The Christians do not believe in cremation, which many of the early Romans did. And so burying bodies after they had died was very important to the Christians. But they needed to have a place to bury them, particularly in periods of persecution, because if they were found, it could be something that would cause a lot of trouble for the families that had left the bodies there. So the Christians are going to also use these catacombs as a place where they could decorate the walls with religious themes. Originally, openings were covered with engraved tombstones. The image shown of the catacombs shows spaces for poor burials, which you can see the ones that are kind of small and thin. This is where the bodies would have been placed. And if you were poor, they would basically just put a shroud over your body, put you in the cubiculum, and then if you were poor, you would have this space. It would have been covered over in, sorry about that, would have been covered over in terracotta. And if you were more of a wealthy family, it would be covered over in marble. The very wealthy would be in a space that was large that would house a sarcophagi. So it depended on your wealth and status, depending on how large your space would be in the catacombs. The images here, as I said before, the places that they would be placed in were called niche, like Niche. And so there would be different sizes based on wealth, but also based on the actual size of the person who died. So if it was a child who had passed, they'd be much smaller as well. Most of them have been uncovered today, mostly because of grave robbing. Another reason why they would go through this area and grave rob had to do with not only looking for items of value, but also many of the early saints or martyrs would have been buried possibly in this large, vast network of catacombs. And so they were trying to recover relics of the martyrs who were buried here and then try to sell them to make to churches to make money off of people who were coming there to visit the relics. This particular catacomb contains more than 5 miles of burial passages, enough for 40,000 burials, and it is about 3 stories high. It's constructed from tufa, which is indigenous to the Roman area. It's a very soft stone, which makes it easy to carve out for burials. This is located in the north of Rome because a wealthy woman named Priscilla, or Priscilla, depending on how you'd like to pronounce it, donated the land, and it was intended initially just for her burial, but then allowed for the burial of other members of the Christian community, and so it grew rather rapidly after that. In the bottom right picture, right here, this is called the Greek chapel, and the reason why they call it the Greek chapel is because they found Greek lettering here. It's not Greek, nor is it a chapel, but they found Greek lettering, and so that's why it is called that. It is significant because of the style of wall painting. It is actually the first style of wall painting that is simulated marble at the bottom, and so which you can see in this right here, you could see how it has been simulated to look like marble. And so it shows the combination of old Roman styles of painting, and then it will progress into the early Christian part. So there's a precedence here for that. The space here was for sarcophagi. There's also room for meals, ongoing meals to be placed as part of ongoing worship to the dead. This chapel has scenes from the adoration of the Magi and the resurrection of Lazarus. These are references to the miracles of Christ during his life. And then very often in early Christian, we have an emphasis on the teachings of Christ and the miracles he performed. Over here in this area, which we've talked about before, but when you see areas that have multiple spaces, those are called loculi, which are rectangular niches that are cut into the wall that can hold 2 to 3 bodies each. Another term that you need to know for this area are lunettes, and that comes here with the ceiling panels that I'm going to show you. Here we go. We could see it a lot better right here. So the first lunette, or the upper right, this one right here, we're showing a woman. It tells a story of a veiled woman who is likely deceased and buried in this space, or was buried in this space. We see the woman 3 times. We see her here, which it looks like she's getting married, is what's happening here. In this image, it looks like she's nursing, or this could possibly be the birthing chair. And then lastly, we see her in her orant figure, or her hands offered in prayer, as she has been moving on to the afterlife. Let's see. So the orant figure is standing in prayer with the hands facing out. The idea behind this is that there is this hope that she would enjoy a blessed afterlife and would be resurrected in the back of this cubiculum. The reason why this is important is because it really gives examples of early Christian art. The first the first image found here dates from the 3rd century or the early 200s. And throughout this whole wide, long, large catacomb, we see the earliest images of the Madonna and Child. It's also, we see some earliest innovations of Christian iconography here, that were both painted and carved. There are inscriptions, and there are also images that kind of set the stage or set the standard for what the iconography is. Now the figure on the left right here, it's the same as this one. It's just a different image, but and it's a little bit difficult to see, but this would have been the top of the ceiling. And in this area right here, we have Christ shown as young without the beard. He's shown as the shepherd. He actually has 3 goats surrounding him, and he's carrying, well, he has 2 goats on the ground, and then he has one that is put over his shoulders. And so it's interesting because it shows, well, he's shown as very shallow in regards to spacing, but there is still a stance that is showing contrapposto, which shows that the artist is informed of the Roman classical ideal. Also in that same circle are 2 trees and a dove. And then the message behind this piece is that Christ will care for his followers in the way that a shepherd cares for his flock. There are more symbols in this area too. We have peacocks, which are the symbol for everlasting life. And then we also have, in this area, we have quails. These are quails. And a quail is a symbol of the earth. And the iconography behind that shows that Christ walks between heaven and earth. And then in the four pendentives, which are here, we see doves with olive branches. This refers to salvation, and it goes back to the figure of this woman right here, because it is showing, her face is done realistically, but her hands are obviously much larger than they should be. And so we're seeing this transition from the Roman naturalism into something that is going to be considered early Christian. But her hands open in prayer like that is supposed to be like her ascending into heaven. So it's really important, because gives us the example of early Christian art, and it's really the first time that we're seeing a lot of the images that will come in the next piece and in future pieces, and what will be repeated all the way through the Renaissance and further.